For close to 100 years, organized crime in America has been a constant headache for authorities. But who organized it? Step forward Meyer Lansky, otherwise known as the mob's accountant. He relied on numbers as much as weapons and became widely acknowledged as a chief architect of the USA's criminal networks. In this video, we'll take a closer look at his life and illegal activities. Welcome back to another episode of Facultive Station. Get involved and join the community by subscribing to the channel so you never miss any of our latest uploads. In this episode, we're going to be taking a look at the man who was the accountant for the Mafia. Let's get into it. Meyer Lansky, born Meyer Lansky or 𝐦𝐨𝐬𝐤𝐞, was one of the most important figures in the development of organized crime in New York, nationwide and worldwide in the 20th century. As a boy, Lansky faced not only the upheaval of a new culture, albeit the melting pot of New York's Lower East Side, but also a dangerous new world. The poisonous atmosphere of Grodno gave way to the intensity of the Big Apple. Immigrating with his family from Imperial Russia in 1911, Lansky's work spanned the pre-prohibition days of the New York City rackets, where he had an early partnership with Benjamin Bugsy Siegel, to the consolidation of the New York mob under Charlie Lucky Luciano, and on to the development of Las Vegas and Havana, Cuba, as open cities for the mob. He controlled casinos in the Bahamas and in London, as well as, reportedly, a Swiss-based bank through which he laundered profits. Lansky was a short, even-tempered man who provided a calmer counterbalance to hot-headed mob members. He was a key figure in the Jewish wing of the Italian Jewish mob that became known as the American Mafia. Lansky was often referenced as the behind-the-scenes financier who avoided the limelight and the publicity that came with open violence. But his early career was associated with the violent bootlegging Bugs and Meyer gang, which he formed with Siegel, and with Luciano's violent takeover of the New York Mafia with the murders of Joe the Boss Masseria and Salvatore Maranzano in 1931. Lansky's close association with Luciano propelled him to the top of mob leadership in the United States. After Prohibition ended in 1933, Lansky successfully parlayed his fortune into gambling interests around the United States and ultimately internationally. He encouraged other mobsters to invest in Cuba, where eventually he owned or had a financial interest in at least 3 casinos: the Habana Riviera, the Hotel Nacional, and the Montmartre Club. In the 1940s, Lansky also began investing in Las Vegas casinos and assigned his friend Siegel to oversee construction of the Flamingo Hotel. The arid desert of Nevada was about to twinkle with the neon of Las Vegas, but Lansky was more interested in mental arithmetic than muscle. He built a gambling empire based on 2 key principles. The first, which was very unusual for the time, was that Lansky insisted on honest gaming. His brilliant mathematical skills meant that he could effectively calculate the odds of most games of chance. The second principle was that he did not, again unusual for the time, use violence. Instead, he made use of mob protection and bribes against law enforcement who were only too willing to get a piece of the action. That wasn't to say he didn't have a foundation in violence. The infamous group Murder Inc. was formed by Lansky and was made up of Italian and Jewish enforcers who let bullets do the talking. Despite being pursued by the feds, he was also approached by them in particular circumstances. That project did not go well, at least initially. Cost overruns ballooned the budget from $1.2 million to $6 million. And some of Lansky's fellow mob investors were unhappy. Some believed that Siegel, who also tightly controlled income from the telephone race wire, providing sports results to bookie parlors and casinos, was stealing a portion of their investment. Several chroniclers claim that Lansky, at a Havana meeting of leading organized crime figures from across the United States, approved of Siegel's assassination, which occurred on June 20, 1947. Although he never openly admitted to approving the hit, Lansky said that if it had been up to him, Siegel never would have been killed, as close to an expression of remorse as you would find from anyone of the mob. Other theories surrounding Siegel's murder suggest Lansky had nothing to do with it, Either way, Lansky's associates immediately took over the Flamingo upon Siegel's death, and the property generated income for Lansky and others for decades. It was around the time of these syndicate meetings that Lansky allegedly made the famous comment that the American Mafia was bigger than United States Steel, at one time the world's largest corporation. The quote was also used by the fictional character Hyman Roth in the film The Godfather Part 2. Lansky is widely viewed as the inspiration for the Roth character. Lansky's gambling operations ran into a multi-million-dollar disaster with the Cuban Revolution of 1959. Rebel leader Fidel Castro nationalized all of Lansky's casino interests on the island. Lansky also suffered from crackdowns on illegal gambling in the United States, including casinos in Florida. Despite his efforts to conceal income, in 1970, Lansky was indicted on federal tax evasion charges. He and his family fled to Israel under the Jewish nation's right of return, but that right did not extend to criminals. Lansky returned to the United States and was arrested at the Miami International Airport. Lansky was ultimately acquitted or had charges dropped against him, in part because of chronic ill health. He had suffered his first heart attack more than a decade earlier. Lansky's influence spread across the world. He had a cozy arrangement with Cuban President Fulgencio Batista, whereby he ran the show when it came to gambling in Havana. Communism and the rise of Fidel Castro put pay to that wing of the business. The man, described as physically small, well-composed, and incredibly clever, only spent 2 months behind bars for illegal gambling. Yet even he couldn't keep investigators away forever. His entry on the FBI website states, in 1972, he was indicted on charges that he and others had skimmed millions of dollars from a Vegas casino that they owned. At that point, Lansky attempted to become a citizen of Israel. Under the law of the return, he believed his Jewish roots would enable him to retire there and be protected. Uri Dan gained Lansky's confidence, writing, "We had to be told what he considered the truth. We had to understand his point of view. In his eyes, we Israelis had been molded by blood, violence, and a struggle for survival and power in the sands of the Middle East." Meyer perceived his background on New York's Lower East Side as similar, though in a different setting. This particular gamble didn't pay off, due to his criminal record, though there was a double-edged sword waiting for Lansky. He was sick and couldn't stand trial as a result. However, it was lung cancer that pursued him now. Lansky lived in Miami until his death from lung cancer in 1983. Federal authorities claimed the mobster still had a hidden wealth to the tune of $300 million, but Lansky himself, the man who built and sold casinos like chess pieces, said he was nearly broke. At the time of his death, he had less than $35,000 in his bank account. With that, we've reached the end of today's episode all about the man who was the accountant for the Mafia. What was the most interesting thing that you learned about Meyer Lansky? Get involved and let us know in the comments section down below. If you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a thumbs up. Plus, if you want to see more fantastic finance and accounting content just like this, remember to subscribe to the channel. And check out our other socials, such as Instagram and TikTok, that are listed in the video description. As always, thanks for stopping by and watching. See you again soon in the next one.